we are now less than 3 weeks away from Election Day, but early voting this year is smashing records from the 2016 election. Nationwide, more than 10.5 million people have already cast their ballots. Compare that to just under 1.5 million votes that were cast from the same time in 2016. This week, early voting began in all of Chicago's 50 wards, so those numbers will continue to go up. And joining us now is Matt Dietrich with the Illinois State Board of Elections. Good morning, Matt. Nice to see you again.
Good morning, Zoraida. Good to be here.
Okay, so we talked about the early voting numbers nationwide. Are we seeing a similar pattern in Illinois?
Absolutely. We've got about 800,000 votes already cast between early voting and voting by mail. That is 6 times the total that we had at this point in the 2016 election cycle. Now, it's 2.5 times the early vote total that we had since then. But as you just mentioned, that early vote total is going to start shooting up now that it's early voting has expanded in Chicago. And on Monday in Cook County, you'll have about 50 early voting centers opening up throughout suburban Cook County. So those early voting numbers are going to shoot up now.
Okay, so the early voting is underway actually in all of Chicago's 50 wards. So we saw people of all ages waiting in line for hours to cast their vote. Can we expect to see those same scenes from now until November 3rd?
I think that you do tend to get longer lines on the very first day. For example, like in Chicago, when the first day of expansion this week, we saw that on September 24th, where we had some lines right at opening day, right at the when they started the voting on September 24th. I think it'll settle down, and what voters should really try to do is think about voting. If you're going to early vote, try to do it at an off-peak time, like mid-morning, mid-afternoon. But the lines should subside as we get into the expanded early voting.
I have to tell you, I was so impressed by, in particular, the elderly people who were waiting in line with their walkers and with their canes because they wanted to cast their vote. It was really something to watch. Okay, so I want to talk about this because this is really important. Last week you mentioned that a panel of 3 election judges look at the signatures on mail-in ballots. So what is the process if there is a discrepancy in the signature?
If there's a discrepancy, it requires that all 3 of those election judges agree that there's a problem, for one thing. Now, what happens then is the election authority has 2 days to notify the voter that there is a problem with the signature. And the voter, under the election bill that's in effect now, the voter can give a statement that, yes, indeed, that is my signature. I did cast that ballot. And then the ballot can be counted. Now, what you saw a lot when people applied for vote-by-mail ballots this year was election authorities trying to get an email address, trying to get a daytime phone so they can quickly contact these voters. But signature issues can be rectified fairly quickly.
I wondered about that because I also saw that they use the signature on your voter registration card. Somebody told me also it was your driver's license, and I was a little freaked out because I signed my name 2 different ways. So I thought, oh my God, I'm going to get a phone call.
Your election authority may have multiple versions of your signature on file, too. And a lot of them, when you applied for that vote-by-mail ballot, they captured your signature on your application, so they would have a modern signature to compare it to. So they can track evolution of your signature as well. If you say you registered 20 years ago and maybe you sign your name differently now, they can track that evolution.
That is great news, Matt. Thank you so much. Okay, so can people still vote in person? If they filled out their ballot, can they take their ballot with them still in person? And let's say they no longer want that ballot to be valid, what would happen?
Well, absolutely they can do that. If you change your mind, if you've already received your ballot, take your ballot with you to your early voting location or on election day to your polling place, surrender it to the election judge. They will void it and you'll get a regular ballot to vote in person. Now, if you've applied for a vote-by-mail ballot, but it hasn't arrived yet, that's not a problem either. Go to your early voting site or on election day to your polling place. There will be a note in the poll book that the election judge will see that you were mailed a ballot. They'll ask you, did you receive your ballot? You answer no because you haven't, then you'll be allowed to vote in person. Now, when you vote in person, it voids automatically your mail ballot. So your mail ballot's no good anymore. So be sure if it does show up that you discard it. whatever you do, do not sign it and try to vote it again. That's a Class 3 felony.
Yeah. All right. Matt Dietrich, so nice to talk to you. I'm so glad you can answer all of our questions for us. We appreciate you.
Anytime, Zoraya. Thank you.